Hello everyone, welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show after a nice winning week in week 12, 9-6. I'll be honest, the 1 o'clock games, I missed out on a lot of those, but the 4 o'clock games, the 8 o'clock slate, the primetime game, I made my money back. It was great, another winning record, 9-6. Tonight, a nice opportunity to go 10-6, another 10-win week with a Bears-Vikings matchup that I feel like I'm probably picking against what most people have to say. So let's start here. The Panthers are making headlines again, and it's not for the right reasons. David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, and the man at the helm really, well, let's just say that he's stirring up quite a storm down in Carolina. Now, let's get this straight. I'm not necessarily against the decision to let go of Frank Reich. I mean, 1-10 to start a season in the NFL, that's a flashing red light if there's ever been one. In the world of football, if you start like that, changes are coming. Someone's got to take the fall. You're not going to cut the rookie quarterback. You're not going to bench Bryce Young after you made him the full-time starter. And I guess you don't want to get rid of the GM. You don't want to move on from him. So the head coach is the last one in the trifecta. He's got to go. It may not be fair, but it is football. But here's where it gets messy. This Panthers team, they've seen coaches come and go through that building like it's a revolving door. 5 coaches in 5 years. That's not stability. That's instability. That's a roller coaster ride of uncertainty. Now, the real problem here is David Tepper, the owner. Tepper's impatience in particular. He has zero patience, it seems like. And everybody wants to say it's too soon, but let's talk about Bryce Young. Let's talk about that draft pick. Tepper reportedly wanted him, but Wright was eyeing C.J. Stroud the entire time. Look at C.J. Stroud now. He's tearing it up as a Houston Texan. He already looks like the bigger quarterback, the stronger quarterback, the more capable quarterback. He's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, and he was the MVP favorite just a few weeks ago. The decision to pick Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud does not look good right now. And apparently, it's not the head coach's fault. It's the owner. It was the owner's call, not Frank Reich's. Do you know what really pains me in this whole situation? Scrolling through social media, scrolling through Twitter this morning, and I was genuinely upset about it. The leaks. The constant leaks, every conversation, every argument, every decision, it's out in the open the moment it happens. That's not how successful organizations roll. The Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, tight ships, tight-lipped, nothing gets out of those organizations. The Panthers, they're not just leaking. They are a bathtub on the second floor with a hole in the drain. That building is so flooded, you could go for a swim in there. So the reason that I find that unacceptable, particularly today, players and coaches on the staff, on Reich's staff, handpicked by Frank Reich, finding out about Reich's firing on social media, not getting a heads up or an impromptu meeting getting called before the news is out, that's a massive organizational failure. It's a failure in communication and an organizational procedure. It's bad. That is a red flag waving high in the sky. That is a flag that is on fire. It signals chaos and disorder in Carolina. So let's get real here about Bryce Young, whether you like him or not. With an offensive-minded head coach now being axed and an owner that clearly runs low on patience, the forecast for Bryce Young isn't sunny. Objectively speaking, it already looks like he may have been the wrong pick. And if you're denying that, you're probably just a Panthers fan or an Alabama fan. So with that being said, with this being the wrong pick and it looking like it was the wrong pick and the instability that he seemingly is having to deal with all around him in that organization, his future is not looking bright right now. The future spells doom for Bryce Young in Carolina if things do not change. In my opinion, the only fix here, David Tepper needs to step up or step aside. This team needs stability, a young team, a young quarterback, a young roster. They need a clear direction and a culture of support, not knee-jerk reactions and leaks flooding the organization and the news wire. The Panthers need a course correction, and it starts from the top down. So on Saturday, I rewatched the Kelsey documentary on Amazon Prime, and then I watched the Eagles and Bills game on Sunday, and I can just feel the magic. There's no other way to explain it. The Eagles, in what was probably the game of the year, took the Bills into overtime and won a thriller 37-34 at home in Philly in rain. Now, there's no way around this, really. That one started ugly. In the first half, Jalen Hurts went 4 for 11 on pass attempts, just 33 passing yards, and not 1 but 2 turnovers in the first half. But here's the thing, and this is what separates the good teams from the great teams. They didn't crumble under that pressure. Jalen Hurts, he rallied. The second half was a different story altogether. Late in regulation, he was a surgeon. in the midst of the Eagles secondary getting exposed, and his right tackle Lane Johnson missing, and Jason Kelce getting called for a rare penalty at an inopportune time, it didn't matter. We talk all the time about the calm before the storm. Jalen Hurts was the calm in the midst of the storm. He could not have been a better distributor, a better decision maker, a better leader than he was last night. He never looked overwhelmed or emotional. He is always level-headed. Nothing ever gets to him. And when other teams normally would panic, Jalen's composure sets the tone for the entire team, because even though the Eagles have plenty of veterans on that squad, there's more young guys this year than there were last year. So those young guys, just drafted, just coming out of college, the big lights, they could easily, in a different world, see their quarterback frazzled and distracted or panicking and imitate that. They could dangerously mimic each other's unease, and that's not what you want when you're down in a close game at home against a team that's having a really good day against you. So Jalen Hurts, who is the ultimate motivator, the ultimate leader, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, maybe even top 3, he took over. Jalen Hurts called game. He rushed into the end zone himself for that game-winning touchdown in overtime, and it's over. The Eagles win the game, and now Philadelphia becomes the first team in the league this year to clinch a playoff spot, and they'll probably end up being the 1 seed in the NFC because I don't see anybody stopping them. So let's talk numbers here, because numbers don't lie. I told you at the start of the game, Eagles were bad. Jalen Hurts himself was bad, right? 4 for 11, 33 passing yards with 2 turnovers. It didn't matter. Jalen Hurts' box score read, he finished with 200 passing yards, not 1, not 2, but 3 passing touchdowns, and he had 2 more on the ground. 5 total touchdowns in that game. That's the kind of performance that turns heads. That defines resilience. Jalen could have easily shelled up after a bad first half. We've seen plenty of great quarterbacks start slow or start ugly and just shut down. You can't get them back into it. Aaron Rodgers specifically, especially later in his career, I've always felt like he was one of those guys. On a day where things are going well and the running game's going well and your receivers are catching passes and you're facing a pretty beatable team, he does just fine. He puts up numbers. But in a tough game with rain, against a really good roster, against conditions that are not necessarily in your favor, with a rough start, when you're single-handedly responsible as the quarterback for the turnovers that have been committed in the game, it's harder to come out in that second half and play like you don't know what the score is. But Jalen Hurts can, and Jalen Hurts did. And because of it, he's probably the leader in the MVP race, although that race has fluctuated over the past month or so. But the Eagles, here's the kicker, right? They didn't just win. They showcased their power, they showcased their toughness, and their unbreakable mental fortitude, which in my opinion is one of the most underrated things in football. The strength of a leader who can shake off a tough start and deliver when it matters most. That's what Jalen Hurts did. That's what the veterans on that roster did. It's in these moments where you build character. They define a team's potential, not the easy wins, not the blowouts. What's more impressive is how Philly can win. We think of the Eagles as a run-first team, right? I think in most people's eyes, that's what we would classify them as. Dual-threat quarterback, excellent offensive line with Hall of Famers everywhere, a nice 2-punch combo with a running back room, and not Miles Sanders anymore, but in Kenneth Gainwell and DeAndre Swift, who they traded for in the offseason. That was what we knew them for last year, too, because even before that postseason run, which was pretty dominant, Philly was dominating time of possession. They would get a lead and they would drain the clock. They were super effective in that. How could they not be able to do that with the talent and coaching they had around them? They're great. That is undeniable. But last night, Buffalo dominated time of possession. The Bills possessed the ball for over 40 minutes. That's unbelievable. When I saw that last night, when I checked again this morning, based on that stat alone, if I didn't watch the game and someone only told me the time of possession split, and you tell me Buffalo's got 40 minutes of time of possession in that game, I would have assumed Buffalo destroyed Philly. I mean, Philly has shown you that they can win a game with that kind of split. But in Philadelphia, and this is the reason they should be the Super Bowl favorite after that game, they've proven they can win in so many more different ways. Take out his first 2 years in the league, I know they were ugly, but Jalen Hurts now, over the past 2 years, has become one of the best throwers of the football in the National Football League. So this team, they can overwhelm you by throwing the football. They can also run the clock out, and they can eat the clock. But they can also win with fewer plays and fewer time possession than their opponent. They can win a clean game with a clean sheet in regulation and no drama, but they can also win in a downpour with strong wins when they're turning the ball over and their defense is giving up big plays and they're being forced to play in overtime. It doesn't matter if they're on the road or at home against a great team or a great coach or a great quarterback. Whatever the circumstance may be, The Eagles just know how to win. We say it all the time that there are certain teams that have a recipe for success. And normally you say that's the better part about a team, right? They have a plan of how they want things to go in an ideal world because that's how they can win football games. The Eagles are like a master chef. They can win in so many different ways, and they know other teams can't. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, even they couldn't keep up with the Eagles' onslaught. Let's be honest. Look at those scores. Look at the tape. No team can compete with this Eagles team. Rain, slippery field, cold, annoyed, not necessarily playing their best football or their preferred style of football. It's not a problem for these Eagles. They can adapt, they can overcome, and last night they conquered. The Eagles are now 7 for 7 in back-to-back weeks in the red zone for the past 2 weeks. This team is rolling, and what it all boils down to is this. The Eagles just aren't winning games, or winning ugly, as people say. They're proving you can win in any circumstance, against all odds. They're evolving, they're growing stronger each and every single week. And that, my friends, is what separates a good team from a great team in this league. It's not the, are you good or do you have good players? It's, are you getting better every single week? Is your OC adding another creative wrinkle to your offense? Has your head coach established an identity for everyone on the team? Are you playing the game the right way? Philly checks off all those boxes. And on the topic of winning ugly, everyone likes to say that it's something bad, right? It has an ugly connotation to it. Oh, they're winning ugly. That one was ugly yesterday. Who cares? It's not football. Or rather, it is football. It's not ballet, and it's not an opera. I mean, how many times in the NFL, how often is it pretty? Maybe in September in Miami or October in LA. But those football games really don't matter, and you start to see that more and more as the years go on. The games that matter in the NFL are played in December and in January when it's windy, when it's cold. In Kansas City, in Buffalo, in Philadelphia, in Cincinnati, of course, not this year because they lost Joe Burrow, but in prior years, in the pouring rain, in snow, in conditions that are awful. The field is a mess. We can't even see the hash marks because it's so rough out there against a great team with offenses who can score and defenses who can steal away possessions from your offense and from your quarterback. The question is, can you win those games? The Eagles are one of the few teams, maybe the only team in the league at this point, that can say yes to that question with 100% confidence. And that magic, I mean, that magic that I mentioned at the beginning when I watched the Eagles, there is nothing stopping this team from going back to the Super Bowl. I'm not even a Philadelphia fan, and it just feels like fate. They're going back to the big game, and on this Monday afternoon, I dare say, I don't know of anybody that can stop them. I think they're going to win it all. The 49ers are great. They're the second best team in the league in terms of roster construction, right behind the Eagles. They've got a great GM. They've got a great head coach. But the 49ers have a recipe for success, right? A recipe, though. I feel like it's singular. No other team, very few teams out there can say they can win beyond that recipe. They're not like the Eagles that can win under literally any circumstance. San Francisco's got a formula. Philly just has solutions. So let's talk Patriots. They lost, and mind you, not just any loss, but a loss to the New York Giants. Maybe a couple years ago that would have been impressive. Now it's a total letdown. A Giants team who literally scored one touchdown in 4 quarters. Somehow they get to call that result a win in Week 12 in their books. Let's be real here. Everyone who tuned into that game knew we were tuning into the toilet bowl, not the Super Bowl, right? The only hype surrounding this game was all the Sopranos music and the Italian gestures towards Tommy DeVito that went viral on TikTok and on Twitter after the fact. Yet here we are, the Patriots falling to a team that's, well, how do you call this? They're awful everywhere except for running back. That's, to put it bluntly. Let's break down this whole game with some cold hard facts. The Patriots now have 2 wins and 9 losses. That's not the record of a dynasty. That's not the record of a team with a clear sense of direction. The Patriots are no longer in their dynasty era. They no longer are the Tom Brady dynasty-led Patriots. They are eyeing currently, according to Tankathon, the 3rd overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, and they are aiming towards that franchise quarterback. And here's the big takeaway from me. Bill Belichick, the head honcho, he can't rally the troops. The so-called Patriot way, it's starting to look more and more every single day like the Brady way. Let me read you the stat that I found on over the weekend on my phone. Patriots games scoring 7 or fewer points this season, they have 4 of those. In Brady's entire tenure, they had 5. So Belichick now, when you look at him and his resume, they're below 500, or he is below 500 without Tom Brady, And let's talk about his draft class, because everybody likes to say, well, he's also a GM, right? This has been some of the worst draft classes we've seen in recent years, right? Bad draft classes from Bill Belichick year and year again. A kicker who was drafted in the 4th round, who missed a game-tying field goal with just from about 30 yards out, not super hard in the NFL, should be a very makeable kick, especially for a kicker drafted in the 4th round. I mean, what a disaster. A quarterback who was supposed to be the guy who was supposed to continue the Patriots dynasty and Mac Jones, the guy who would lead the Patriots back to the promised land. Mac Jones, after another pathetic showing, he was benched. He had a disastrous first half. 2 interceptions and a fumble, which was recovered, but it's still a fumble in the stat sheet. I've got some breaking news. He's not the future. So here's the bottom line. Let Bill Belichick finish out the year. He's earned that. But beyond that, it's time to hit the reset button. Clean house, new coach, new coaching staff. Separate the GM from the head coach role. Cut ties with Mac Jones or trade him away in the offseason. To be honest, I could care less. Just look towards the draft. Find the generational quarterback. I know you're at 3 and you're probably out of reach of Caleb Williams or Drake May. But maybe it's Bo Nix. Maybe it's Jaden Daniels. Maybe it's Michael Penix Jr. Or maybe even J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. The point is, the Patriots need a modern approach, a fresh perspective. We're in the year 2023, and soon, when they're drafting in 2024, we are way past 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. Bring in a GM, someone who is not the head coach, build a scouting department that's forward-facing, that's modern, and do your homework. It's time to move on. It's time to shake things up. And it's time that if you do it the right way, you might be able to reclaim that winning culture. But the Patriots, at the end of the day, need a reboot. They need a fresh start, and it starts with saying goodbye to what once was and embracing what could be, which is your next quarterback. So tonight we've got an interesting game, right? Monday Night Football. Not the best matchup in the world, but certainly one in which people think they know who's going to win. Vikings-Bears, a lot of money coming in on the Vikings, seemingly when I look at books and I look at percentage stats and whatnot on Google and online. My personal opinion, I like Josh Dobbs. I like the story. I get it. Rocket scientist, NASA, everybody's getting in on the fun and on the hype and on the action. And I genuinely like Josh Dobbs as a person. I hope he finds a home in the NFL. I hope that's with the Vikings. It may very well end up being if that's the case now with Kirk Cousins injured and probably moving on to another team in the offseason as a free agent. But to me, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, this Bears team, anytime we think that you've got to count them out, they always show you, particularly I feel like in primetime games when everyone thinks, oh, we know exactly what's going to happen. This Bears team feels like a team that always surprises us. I'm taking them tonight, Monday Night Football. I hope I can get a win. That would be my 10th win of the week. That would mean a 10-6 record for the week. Another pretty strong week, in my opinion, for picks. Until next week, I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am very excited.